Welcome to the Plug Into Your Life podcast. I have Julz here, and I'm really excited to dive into this because I have an inner passion over children. And Julz, preschool teacher before, decided to go into helping kids more of a one-on-one or group setting, um, more of a nationwide thing. And instead of being in a building, and she can reach more people and kids this way. And I'm just really glad to be talking to you today, Julz. Thank you for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I'm so excited about this, my inner goal in life is to help kids and parents kind of wake up to the idea that there may be a suppression of children's inner gifts, I believe. As we grow up, I know with myself, I grew up and I would talk to, imaginary friends, or I would think that, I really wanted to excel in different art or something like that. Now my parents did support different things, but I think sometimes parents don't understand their kids, or they almost want to live their life through their kids and kind of encourage them to not do certain things that they don't think is going to support them financially in the future. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah. And
definitely.
so, so anyone that wants to kind of encourage a more natural way of supporting kids so they don't develop these emotional negative traits, I'm all about. So I'm really excited to dive into this. Now, you were a preschool teacher before, so
Mhm.
what prompted you to kind of step away from that? And was there like a spiritual sense about that? And what happened?
Hmm. Yeah, so I studied to be an elementary school teacher. And during that time, I always knew like, ooh, I don't know if it's academics that I necessarily want to be teaching kids. Social emotional learning has always been my jam. And so I decided to start with preschool because I was like, okay, I can still do the social emotional learning without it being very academic focused. I'm so happy I did that. And during that time, I got my master's in education in social emotional learning. Um,
Wait, 1 second. So you said
yeah,
social emotional learning. So
social emotional learning.
so that's different than regular learning.
Yeah, exactly. So social emotional learning is the foundation of life, essentially. It's learning about us, our self awareness, and also self regulation skills and relationship skills. So, again, like that's always been my like, oh, yes, that's what lights me up. So, that's why I decided to pursue a master's in it. And I, I always thought I wanted to be in a classroom, like teaching, okay, at the front of the board.
Mhm.
And then I was like, wait a second, like I don't want to do that anymore because I was limiting myself in that and being in the four walls of a classroom. And through working with a previous coach that I had, he guided me to come up with new ways. So that's what led me to start my business where I can work one on one with kids and helping them to develop social emotional skills. And it's like I still get to be a teacher. It's just a teacher that's not in the four walls of a classroom.
Now, my sister's a teacher, and what understand is that there's so much pressure and so much um, forced knowledge that you have to stand by, right? And like there's reports and all kinds of stuff behind that. I mean, you're kind of confined to whatever they want you to do. Is that correct?
Totally. Yeah,
Mm,
totally. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I was like, no, I can't. I didn't, nothing in me was, it wasn't aligning, it wasn't correlating. Because I knew like how much more what kids actually need to learn in order to have develop confidence and motivation and empathy and all of that. So yeah, there are a lot of standards and objectives, especially in public schools, which teachers need to follow.
yeah.
And so I was like, no, I don't align with it. So that's what led me to be here now.
Great. Yeah. And social emotional. I know for me, when I finally like shifted where, oh my gosh, like the things that I'm doing in my life or the habits and routines that I've developed usually stemmed from my past. And
Mhm.
a lot of those things I found when I started going down this spiritual healing path, and a lot of that stuff was tied so much to my past that I realized that when I had a healing over something, it was usually tied to some emotional trauma or some, and it wasn't even a real trauma. It was just a trauma in my mind
Mhm.
from my past as a child that I never learned how to deal with. And so when I hear social emotional, to me, that really means like my social skills and development with other
Mhm.
people and kids, and then the emotions and self-regulation, which you talked about,
Mhm.
over those emotions, which I'm learning that emotions are one of the most important things in a child's life. Is that,
Mhm.
at least for me? So, um, if you have like, what are some things that you notice with kids growing up? Like, how did you, uh, once it started developing, what did you start noticing about kids, and how did that influence what you started talking about?
Yeah, so I guess we could start with when I was in field placements in my college years, being in like special ed classrooms, inclusion classrooms, pull-out classrooms, general ed classrooms. I really noticed like kids academic needs were actually being impacted because their social and emotional needs weren't being met. So let's say you have a kid who's acting out in the classroom and they're engaging in disruptive behavior, and the teacher might be yelling at them or might not know how to control them. The what I believe is that kid that's experiencing these troubles, they're really just craving connection. So it's not that they're trying to get attention. Yeah, that's how it's presenting. But underneath, if we go to the root, they're really craving a connection that maybe they're not receiving at home or in the classroom. So that has always been like a big piece that's stood out to me when I've been in the placements, of recognizing the patterns of like, okay, he's acting out because he's not getting this at home, or she's acting out because the teacher's not hearing her here. So that's what led me to want to create this, to provide a space for kids to feel seen and understood. And yeah, that's what brought me here.
Oh my God, I love this. I have lots of ideas on other kids, but I don't have any kids, so I'm just relying on my memory from my past. And I know for myself, I had things like my real father dying when I was young. I was like 6 or 7.
Mhm.
Um, my parents got divorced. Like, there's lots of stuff that happened, and I
Mhm.
started acting out in class. I became like this class clown and constantly getting in trouble, going to the principal's office. I was lighting matches and stuff like that inside the school.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't blame my parents anymore. I did for a long time, but
Mhm.
no, I don't think parents are equipped because they don't teach you this stuff in school. So you're
Mhm.
relying on your parents teaching you stuff like this. And and a lot of times their parents didn't teach them this stuff because they
Totally.
didn't know either. So it's like
Exactly.
there has to be some type of thing that educates parents on emotional um, stuff and how to deal with that, right?
Exactly, Dylan. Yeah. And so a part of why I love my work is I don't just work with the kids, I also work with the parents or the caregivers, because I look at it like, let's say you take a kid who goes to therapy and they're learning all these skills and it's great and it's helping the kid. Okay, that can be beneficial in therapy when the kid is with the therapist, and maybe in the kids, like, some I therapy, I'm like, yes, go. But
Mhm.
I think being able to support the parents is equally, if not more important, so that the parents and the caregivers can then support their kid at home, because they're the one that knows their kid best. They're the one that spends most time with their kid. So why I love what I do is because I'm able to support parents with resources and with guiding through, like, okay, a lot of the times our kids are a mirror, they're a reflection of what we were like in childhood. And are unprocessed traumas or emotions that weren't able to be released or expressed, they then get transferred down to our kids. So it's just like this super cool, interesting cycle that I feel so blessed that I get to like unpack, I guess, with the caregivers and the kids.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're bringing this up because sometimes I don't know where other people are at with this belief. And from what I've been learning about energy and the human body and generational curses and stuff is kind of crazy.
Mhm.
I mean, the stuff that so when you're younger, I like thinking about this because it just kind of blows my mind because I don't want to talk about my age right now, but I'm getting a little older, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And what I realized is that when I was younger, I looked at my parents like they were these old people when they weren't that old. You know, they're in their like 20s or like late 20s or something. And you start thinking when you're a child that your parents are these old wise people that know everything. But
Mhm.
as you grow up, you realize they don't know what the heck they're doing. You
Mhm.
know, they're just like
Mhm.
you, figuring it out, learning.
Mhm.
And sometimes, yes, their stuff, their trauma, their emotional problems, a lot of times it just gets right passed to the kids and it's
Yeah.
never fully dealt with or healed. And so
Mhm.
each generation, each child that keeps coming in, they're all carrying these different emotional ties, right?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, and with that, it's like, you mentioned this earlier, Dylan, like you used to, blame your parents, and I so hear you when you say that. But having the awareness of like, there, no matter what age you are as a parent, you can always heal and you can always give that gift of healing to your kids. Because when you heal, like, for example, my parents right now, they're going through their own healing journeys, and that is such a gift to me. So you could be 85 and be like, like it's never too late. And that's what I assure the caregivers that I work with. I'm like, it's okay. You were doing the best that you could, and there's
Yeah.
no blame, there's no shame. It's just a matter of like you get the gift of giving to your kids this healing. If you go through it, they'll in the same regard go through the same thing. So it's beautiful that it's never ever too late.
Yeah, and I really believe that like once one person in a family starts down a path of healing or self-awareness, really, like it's infectious. I think it's like when you're around somebody that's just so positive and so full of energy, right? They're kind of addicting. And I think it's the same thing with families. I think our blood is really intertwined in our energies throughout our whole family. And just like
Mhm.
when you go into holidays and there's people hear about like family fights and stuff like that, just like that negative energy is infectious with a family. I
Totally.
think when you have somebody that's doesn't want to go through that anymore and they're like, you know what, I'm gonna get some healing. I'm gonna learn self-awareness and regulation and emotions. I think it's infectious as well.
Totally.
Yeah. So what do
Yeah.
you think there's like since you've been down this path, is there like three like big things maybe that kids or parents go through that are like three of the biggest problems that you see with kids or parents?
Three of the biggest problems that I see with kids or parents. Um, so something that just came up when you were talking, Dylan, is a lot of the kids that I work with, they are empaths or
Mm.
they're very intuitive and they are deeply feeling kids. So they can pick up the feeling of if their caregiver, like if they're tense, then the kid might start to act out because they can feel the caregiver being tense. So I think number
Mm.
one would be to like notice the direct impact that the energy that you bring has on your child. So that would be number one. And then number two, I would say this goes for any caregiver and any person, honestly, you don't have to have kids, is when somebody comes to you with sharing their feelings, don't try to change their feelings. Instead, listen and validate their experience to them because they're not just like saying things to seek for attention. A lot of the kids that I work with, they can often feel misunderstood by their parents, and they just want someone to just see them and hear them and not even change how they're feeling, but just almost just validate and like assure them that it's okay to have these big feelings and that they're still going to be loved for having these big feelings. Um, and number three would be what I touched upon before is it's well, I guess could be a combination. Every child is good. Like every child is good. Every
Mhm.
person comes into this world good. There are no bad kids. And often kids can get bad rap, like, oh, he's just a bad kid, or the kid who acts out in school, they get labeled as like the troubled one or whatever it is. And it's like, no, like all behavior is just, it's a way to communicate something that's like not feeling right inside. So just truly believing that like your kid is good, they are pure, they are good, they could just be really struggling. So instead of labeling a kid as bad, seeing them as good, who kid who's good, who might have just challenges that they're struggling with.
Yeah, that's so good. So I just watched the new Avatar movie. It's really good.
Mhm,
And they would do this thing where the Jake Sully, or the father, looked at his child and said, "I see you." And it was like this emotional moment, and it made
mhm,
me think like, "Oh my God, like every child and really every human being just wants to be seen for like who
mhm.
they really are."
Yeah.
And when that doesn't happen, I know for myself, I acted out in a way that got me the attention that I thought I wanted.
Mhm,
And so what you're saying is like, not only can kids feel your energy, so if if you're reacting in a way that's very stressful, or you get stressed out easy, or you act out in anger towards your spouse or something like that, like the kids
mhm,
kind of mirror that stuff. And
mhm,
and if you're annoyed or irritated by stuff, like they sense all that, is what you're saying. I think all kids are kind of empathic
mhm,
with that. And then if they are feeling something, like don't change that feeling, like just
mhm,
acknowledge it, and then give presence to it and allow them to feel that instead of suppressing it, right?
mhm. Absolutely.
And then I think you're right too. I think every child is born good. I think
Mhm,
they're subjected to their environment. But two identical twins in the same environment, one can look at it in a negative way and say, "My dad's an alcoholic, so I'm an alcoholic," or that's maybe a bad example. There
mhm.
may be some genes in there involved, uh, but the other child would be like, "Oh, my dad's an alcoholic, so I don't want to be an alcoholic." You
Right.
know? And
Yeah.
so I think acknowledging each specific child's feelings and emotions and what they're actually going through, and treating them like they're a real human, rather than, "Oh, you're just a kid, you shouldn't be feeling like that, you should act like this," right?
Exactly. Yes, treating them like they're a real human, like that you would treat a friend. Yeah, because they are a real human. They come into this world a real human, so it's yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah. Do you ever get it? I know you have, but like, man, sometimes these kids, I will get into like deep conversations with them. Like,
Mhm.
they're like, I'm like, you're like a little adult, man, like a little, like
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing.
so
I love
amazing.
I love how honest they are too. Like kids are like sometimes brutally honest, but they're so pure. Like it's all pure, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, there's another interesting study that I found. I went to this foster care class when I was thinking
Mhm,
about doing this with my previous relationship, and they said an interesting study that what was it, like 99% of kids that get into the foster care system but don't find a family that supports them or takes them on, if they age out of the system like 18 years old, and they age out and they never really connected with the family or something,
mhm,
they 99% of the time, maybe slightly different, but I think it was like a really high 99%, either end up on drugs, pregnant, on the streets, some negative lifestyle, as
Yeah.
opposed to if just one person gets in their corner and supports them and tells them you can do it, or you can do this, or you can do that, like
Mhm.
they make it, they don't end up on drugs or pregnant or whatever. And it's
Mhm.
just like, wow, just one person. And
Mhm.
I think that's why coaching or having a different perspective, helping you through some of these things, like with your children, is so
Mhm.
important, because Einstein said you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created the problem. So if you're trapped in this energy of a problem child, or you don't know what to do, or having one person that can kind of see a different perspective, a lot of times will be that guiding light out of that, right? And it's
Mhm.
the same with kids. Like, oh my gosh, like they just need someone in their corner to say, oh, it's okay that you're feeling angry right now. Let's
Mhm.
talk about that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it takes one. It really does take one person. Like there's this amazing he's like a I call him like an emotion scientist. His name's Mark Brackett, and he has a book and he does a lot of work with regulating emotions for kids in schools. And he had an uncle. His uncle's name is Uncle Marvin. And like Uncle Marvin was his like person, like his person that heard him and saw him and validated him. And he was like, without it, my Uncle Marvin, like, I don't know. So exactly to your point, Dylan, it does really take one person to be able to influence a kid and maybe change the trajectory of their lives. So
And it'd be really nice if I was the parents, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So now you also mentioned regulation of emotions. So
Yeah.
for parents and even kids, like, what would you say would be like your top ways that parents or kids can help that? Or like, okay, so we have a situation where a kid comes back from school, he was bullied or something, or maybe the parents are going through a divorce or something like that,
Hmm.
and they're getting in trouble at school, or they come home and they are just, oh, they're angry, they're acting out, they just talked back, and their parents like getting angry. Like, how do you what would you say to a parent that's going through something with their kid, or maybe they don't understand?
Mm, yeah, that's such a deep question and I love it and I so appreciate it. I think with emotion regulation, it's like we immediately think of like how can we quick fix the behavior or quick fix the emotion. And my first thought on this is just allow your kid to just fully feel their feelings. Like emotion doesn't leave our body until it's fully felt. So for
Mm,
kids, if they're like, oh, don't cry, or like boys don't cry, or whatever it is, or like you have to be strong, then they have this, it's like the emotions just keep getting suppressed and suppressed and suppressed. So allow them to come up and allow them to have the temper tantrums and allow them to feel the emotions. And then when it's like, okay, they've felt it, then I always come back. I think the most important thing, it's like the simplest and everyone talks about it, but it's breath. Like it's literally coming
mm,
back to our breath and sinking into our body. And that there are like so many different breathing techniques, but breathing, not being like take a deep breath, like as a parent to a kid, take a deep breath, but like modeling to your kid, like something I try to do
mm,
with my clients is when I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed or anxious or whatever it is, modeling, like actually breathing myself, like
mm.
just settling into my body. So I would say modeling breathing and allowing your kid to feel all their feelings and not labeling any feelings as bad, but actually just like we're meant to experience this full range of emotions as humans.
Wow, I'm so glad you said that. um okay, so yeah, number one, I have a lot of thoughts on that one. So the second thing, like, what is there another, besides emotions, or does it all come back to really emotion regulation, and modeling that? Is there something else that they can do? Let's say, like you just mentioned, oh, breathe. The parents like stressed out, like my kid's acting out
Yeah.
or something. Oh, just breathe, and then they're trying to model it, but the kid doesn't want to listen to them.
Mm,
Okay, so what about how do you keep going with that?
okay. Um, I think another strategy could be sometimes kids, they got to just move their bodies, like, and people too in general. So, like, if we have all this built up energy and emotion in us, like, if we're like feeling like stiff and like, it's like we got to just literally loosen up our bodies. And that could be through walking. It could be through, I love to use song with kids. So, like, having a parent throw on their kid's favorite song or song that makes them feel really good, and just like dancing it out, like moving that energy in your body that's stuck and processing it through walking, through dancing, through playing catch, like whatever it is, to literally just move their body.
And I'm sure this kind of stuff. So if a parent or something is going through a lot of things, and I'm imagining right now, like I'm in the grocery store and I see this kid like just rah, like going crazy. That may
Mhm,
not be the best time to start incorporating a new method of dealing with stress, right?
mhm.
But what I'm thinking is that it may take a little bit of time to undo some of the routines and habits of how the kids deal with their emotions and how you deal it with the kids.
Absolutely.
But um, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff in here.
I know.
Uh, so, but by slowly enforcing, like, okay, like this is really about the parents also learning how to heal themselves and how to regulate their emotions or their reactions to that emotion,
Bingo. Yep.
right? So
Mhm.
I think the top three ways, like not only allow them to feel the emotion, then they got to move it, but I think it really ties to the parent, like also learning to not react, right?
Mm,
In
yeah.
order to allow the other two things.
Yep,
Which,
exactly.
mm,
Because yeah, as parents or caregivers, when we have reactions to things, like when we're triggered, it's again, it's all comes back to a reflection of what's going on inside us that we were triggered by in our childhoods. So
mm,
if it's like there's just so much to say on this, but yeah, it really is, it really, so much of it has to do with parents going inward and like having compassion for themselves, that their parents did the best that they could, and now it's their turn to like take control of healing themselves. So again, so when they heal themselves, like direct impact on their kids, it's like literally straight line.
mm. Yeah, my God, I'm learning so much about this stuff with myself in my life right now. So
Mhm.
like the fact that you're teaching this to parents and kids is like so incredible. Especially the breath. So I just got into breath work and I've been teaching this. I'm doing a class this Sunday even. And when like there's even books on like the breath can heal anything, literally.
Mhm.
And so not only using that as a tie to handling your stress, but you made a comment like it's not about when the kid's acting up, say, okay, just breathe, just breathe. It's
Mhm.
modeling that because you ever be in front of somebody and they're sitting a certain way or they have a mannerism that you mirror or
Mhm.
even an accent. Sometimes if you're around somebody with an accent a lot, you'll
Mhm.
start picking up the accent and you're like, is that
Totally.
coming out of me, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like we have this innate ability to mirror things. Like the
Mhm.
human body just wants to mirror another human, right?
Yeah.
So naturally, if your kid sees how you're reacting to their emotions,
Mm,
that's how they react to other outside influences in their life too, right?
totally. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So the parent would really need to learn, okay, I'm going to pull myself out of the emotions of my past from my parents.
Mhm.
I'm going to look at that now with a loving awareness of, okay, they did the best they could. Now that I'm learning this, I'm going to give myself some slack and realize that I did the best that I could.
Exactly.
And I'm going to make some small changes now. And number one, that starts with okay, when my kid's acting out, even if it's so bad,
Yep.
I'm gonna not react the best I can, and
Mm,
I'm going to mirror how to handle that emotion.
yeah.
And it starts
Yeah.
with
And
breathing.
yeah, and it's small changes, like you said, Dylan. It's like it's not like we're gonna be like we're gonna forever stop yelling at our kids and
Yeah.
stop like what it, no, like that's not reality. But having the awareness is like so key. So even yeah, like I said, it takes time too. That's something I remind the caregivers that I work with. I'm like, this isn't like an overnight quick fix. Like,
Mm,
and I also preface, I'm like, I myself am not a parent and I do not know what it's like to be a parent, but based on my experiences through working with kids and my research through how to help parents, like this is just what I'm bringing forth. And I remind them that like it's parenting can be hard. Like it can be really hard. Again, I don't know, but I can see how it can be really, really hard. So just having compassion for ourselves along the way and like is probably the biggest thing. And
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So oh my gosh, I think everybody that may be listening can like go back to their childhood of some traumatic thing that happened. And so I feel like what I've learned is like our minds and our bodies are really records of the past. And so what I learned about the emotions is that your mind or your body will take a mental snapshot or a picture
Mhm.
based on a really low emotion or a really high emotion. All the stuff in
Mm,
between, we kind of don't remember most of that stuff.
mhm.
But the weird part about memories is that up to 50% of the memories aren't even true. It's like based on the emotions that you are taking a picture of that thing. So
Totally.
your remembering of that event is going to adjust based on the emotions that it made you feel that you may not have felt all the way or you may have
Mhm.
suppressed.
Mhm.
And so like I feel like therapy really like looks at the emotions of the past and then people get enveloped in that emotion. But I think it's important to just realize like you can look at that with just an awareness. Like if you're in the painting of the emotion, you can't really see the whole picture. So like pulling yourself out
Yeah.
in that awareness and kind of looking at the whole picture like, oh, okay, you know, I can see how that could happen or this could happen. Now let's take a look at not suppressing the emotion. So how would
Mhm.
that look like for a parent and a kid? Like if a kid comes home and he's had this traumatic thing and he's crying or he's temper tantruming or something, how does a parent use awareness and use allowing the to feel the emotion in that
Mhm.
situation? Like how would that play out as a kid and a
Mm.
parent?
I would say for this, I always like to think like you can, and I learned this from there's a great parenting guide. Her name is Dr. Becky Kennedy, and she always goes back to like repair. So, what's coming through now for this question, Dylan, is let's say a kid does have like a really challenging experience in school, like something that feels really traumatic or whatever it is, and they come home and they share the experience with their parent. Like, their parent can almost go back with them, like travel back and hold their hand in literally could hold their
In
hand
the
or just
event. Yeah.
in the event exactly and help them to heal through it. And like that all comes down to validating what they were feeling in that moment. Because if they feel alone, like no one's around them when something happened to them, or like nobody like saw, like made them feel loved when they went through something scary, parents can help their kids repair these experiences and go back with them and be like, whatever it is, it could be like, wow, like that must have been really scary. Because for a kid to hear that is like, yeah, it was really scary. Instead of storing that emotion in their body of like, oh my God, I have this really scary thing that happened to me. They keep replaying. So a parent's role could be to go back with them to that situation and like literally just validate like, wow, that must have been like really scary for you to go through. So that validation. And also, this is not really related, but kind of repairing with like, let's say a parent, like let's say you've got a parent who's 50 years old and they have a 20-year-old and they're like, man, like I've done some, like I've like messed up. It's like, okay, give yourself grace because you really did probably do the best that you could at the time. And it's never too late to go back and repair and be like, listen, like I'm so sorry. Like there are some things in your childhood that like I know probably didn't make you feel good. Like it's never again, it's never ever ever too late to just repair and go back with them and help heal that part of both yourself and your kid.
Wow, yes. Oh my God. And I mean, that's happened in my own life where, you know, 15 years later, me and my mom sitting down and going over something in the past, and kind of owning both of our sides of it
Mhm.
and healing that.
Yeah,
Oh my God, you can feel weights just falling off your shoulders when that happens too.
totally.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So a kid's coming home or whatever, and they're acting out, or they're slamming their door or whatever it is. I don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
What you're saying is, instead of saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like, "Oh, wow, tell me what happened." And
Mhm.
then the kid will start talking, or maybe they don't want to, or they're uncomfortable. But okay, when you're ready, let me know, or some version of that. But when the
Yeah.
kid's explaining it, going back and I learned this, I didn't do it very well in relationship, uh, like when you're in a relationship and
Yeah.
not trying to control how the other person feels, but rather, oh wow, I can understand how you could feel that way. And really
Yeah.
seeing their emotions as and just validating. So that's like a validation, like, wow, I could really understand how you could feel that way. Or wow, I would feel that way too. Something like that.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Everything you just said, yes, 100% yes. And also it's hard to like give like a specific script of what exactly you would say to your kid because
Yeah, yeah,
right? Because like each kid's
yeah.
different is gonna have a different reaction. Like what works for one kid might not work for another kid. I don't think it's like that universal, but what I do know is universal is everyone wants to feel seen, heard, understood, loved, like validated. Those are like the five, like every person wants to feel those. So it's not necessarily what you say. I think it's like how you make somebody feel. And again, Dylan, this is like this touches upon it's not just kids. Like this is just like
Yeah.
human, this is
Human
human shit.
nature.
This is everything.
Yeah, I had a realization. I was in this cool ceremony out here in the Philippines, and all of a sudden, like this download came in where it's like every person that hurts someone else, or every single human that causes some type of negative feeling or outcome in the world or other people, stems from not being loved enough in some way in their lifetime.
Mhm.
And I started looking at myself, like how I've either hurt my exes, or I've um, hurt someone or a family member with my words or something like that. Like it really came from me not feeling loved in some way.
Yeah.
And then they say like hurt people. And so in order to get through that, I don't believe in really living in the past.
Mhm.
Like, but acceptance really is the key to all of my problems, I think. But you've got to allow that emotion, which emotion means energy in motion.
Mhm.
So if that energy is trapped somewhere inside of you, you
Mhm.
know, and you're not expressing or allowing yourself to feel it, if you feel it, you can heal it,
Mhm.
then it's just gonna come out in some other negative way. And it could
Exactly.
stem from, so like I look at like the most grumpiest man on earth, and he's just so grumpy
Mhm.
and so mean and like, you know,
Mhm.
really that comes from in some way in his usually childhood.
Yep.
He didn't feel loved enough, so he is now emulating this non-love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's
just
so powerful.
it is, and it does, it makes you, like, have just so much compassion for people in general, and, like, it's helped me at least have just so much more understanding for people, like, there's a reason why behind behavior, and you
Mm,
just shared a beautiful example, like, yeah, if we don't It's yeah, so
So
much, but
good, right?
yeah, so it is. It's so good. There's
You
so much.
you start looking at this stuff and it's like, it makes sense, but like it's such a simple solution, I think. But like a lot of adults are carrying around emotions for lifetimes.
Yeah.
Lifetimes, families. Like I look at my family. I love my family so much, but um they when we get into holiday events, or my grandmother, bless her heart, she passed away, but she would have these big family parties every year, and everybody would get together, but almost every single time by the end of the party there was some big emotional fight over
Yeah.
something that happened in the past.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh my gosh, like as soon as families or just one person starts down this path, like this is powerful. Like you can end entire family bloodlines of
Yep.
carried on emotions and pain and suffering and disease, which I believe is just a dis-ease from an emotion that
Mhm.
families don't want to deal with. And
Mhm.
I think it can start with just one little single family, like
Yep.
one mom and dad, maybe two kids or a kid or something. Like you start this in your own family, like it's gonna spread throughout your whole family. Because once you do it with your own kid, all of a sudden you're gonna do it with your own mom.
Exactly.
Like, hey
Yeah.
mom, remember that time? Like,
Yep.
right?
Ex exactly. Yeah. It takes one I don't know the right word here, lineage or one
Mm,
generation really to, like,
mm,
heal this all. Like, if we've got one generation, so let's say all these kiddos coming in right now, if they all learn to literally just be able to feel their feelings and feel loved and safe and heard and understood, then like that can literally change the world because we've got a
yeah.
whole line of kids coming in. Okay, well, their kids are gonna know. Their kids are gonna know. Like it literally does just take one generation if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that's true. Now, just to plug in here, so if anybody's resonating with this, or you think that um, you've got a unique situation and no one else is like you, or something, or whatever your case may be, and you are looking for some other perspective, um, or any of this, like I said, is resonating with you, and you want to check out Julz, you can go to Julz Adams Coaching on Instagram and Facebook, or julzadamscoaching.com, and check out Julz here, and you can at least get some type of insight or other methods of ways of helping your family healing yourself, and starting down this path, because I
Mhm.
think this is so awesome. So again, Julz Adams Coaching on Instagram or Facebook. Go check her out. Okay, so
And I'm adding one thing. It's Jules, J I know you'll write it, but it's Julz. It's not ES, it's a Z in there. Julz.
yes, and we're gonna have the links down below so you guys can click on that instead of typing it.
Mhm.
Yes. When you hear something and you're like, man, if I could just have my mom listen to this, or something. Or like, if I could just send this to my sister, or like, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, but this is literally like the core of humans.
Yeah.
And I think you're probably diving into one of the this is why I get so amped up over kids and stuff, because I feel like if we can just inject this into our school systems, like my sister said that they started doing a mindful hour at
Mhm.
their school,
Mhm.
and I'm like, oh my God, that's so great. Like in today's world, you're just so caught up on this nonstop stimulation,
Mhm.
and it's an addiction.
Mhm.
It's a real addiction to dopamine and all these different chemicals in the brain.
Mhm.
And if we can just start like being mindful of emotions and energies, and You walk into a room and two people are fighting, but they're not fighting when you walk in. But when you walk in, you can feel it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your kids are like that. Like, you may not think that they know what's going on, like they're just kids. But I tell you what, man, they are more tuned in to energy than you could ever imagine. Their brains are in a theta brainwave state, what, until they're, I don't know the science behind this. I think it's like 9 or 10 or something,
Mm-hmm.
or some
I'm not.
some age where their brainwaves are at a slower, more creative state. And think about it. If women are like a portal to this other dimension, right, where we come from, the ether, God, Christ consciousness, wherever we stem from,
Mm-hmm.
heaven, I don't know. If women are like this portal and kids are coming out of this being born, they are more connected to God than you.
Mm-hmm.
They have this connection of feeling and their emotions and sensing things. Like, there I watched this thing on Netflix about what was it? Uh Afterlife or something, where they talk about kids that remember past lives,
Mm-hmm.
and they remember it so vividly that the parents think, like, oh my gosh, like, let's just start researching this, and they start like looking up all the details that the kid's giving them, and they will literally find the person that died that the kid remembers dying. you know
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm telling you, kids are tuned in and connected, man. And
Totally.
our past history of culture and education, like America specifically has done this, but other countries don't do this, and they encourage kids to feel emotions, and they validate kids' feelings or what they're seeing or imaginary friends or like
Yep.
whatever that may be. And if we can get out of this mindset of, oh, they're just kids, or oh, they don't know what they're doing, or I know best, or whatever,
Mm.
like, and just sitting with them and allowing them to feel, and starting that process of, okay, I reacted last night to my kids, but today I'm going to try my best to not react when they act out.
Mm-hmm.
Start making these small incremental changes, because it takes what, 3 to 4 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks to start a new habit.
Mm-hmm.
So if our brain fires and wires the same way together over a period of time, so your
Mm-hmm.
reaction time, it may take you like an hour to not react the same way. Like, I'm gonna react now. Oh my gosh, stop acting like that. It was stress.
Yep.
An hour later, you're like, oh, okay, I shouldn't have done that.
Yep.
This is never too late. You can fix that then when you realize it. But the
Yep.
next time, you're gonna get a little faster at that reaction. Maybe
Totally.
next time your kids may be acting out or going crazy or something. It may take you a half an hour now. Okay, I reacted negatively at this time, but over a period of time, those small changes will turn into, okay, my kid's acting out, they're doing something, they're crying, they're screaming, they're whatever. I'm going to allow them to do that. What
Mm-hmm.
I think you're saying, allow them
Mm-hmm.
to feel that, and then come at them with a new energy.
Yeah,
Okay.
and be curious of their behavior. Like having
Please. Yes.
curiosity, like being curious. Okay, why might they be behaving that way? Like, have I not spent enough time one-on-one with them? That's a big thing for kids. If they're not getting enough one-on-one time with their caregiver, then that can be a sign. Or, there are so many, but just
Mhm.
becoming curious instead of like judging or assuming, but be curious of like, why might my kid be reacting that way?
Yeah, love it. I feel like we can go on for hours about these topics. We are at the top of the hour.
Mhm.
So, lightning round here. I just want to ask, what is one thing that people can check out, or parents especially, or even kids, maybe if they're listening? What is one thing that parents could check out, like a book, podcast, or video? Just one thing that somebody could check out today that helped you with
The
this.
The book that's helped me the most, and she's got podcasts and she's on Instagram, is Dr. Becky Kennedy, who I mentioned before. She's like a parenting guru, and the book is called Good Inside. So, Good Inside by Dr. Becky Kennedy has helped me so much as a coach, and as a potential parent.
Yeah,
And um, and yeah, she's on Instagram, and so Dr. Becky Kennedy.
love it. Um, all right. Well, we are at the top of the hour. I had some other lightning round questions, but we've reached the end here. Again, guys, if you want to check out Julz, it's Julz with a Z. Julz Adams Coaching. You can just click on the links down below: Instagram, Facebook, and .com. But is there any last words of advice that you want to give parents going through this challenging um, circumstance of helping kids?
I would say be gentle on yourselves, have compassion for yourselves, and um, believe your kids when they tell you something, and
Mm,
just validate what they're feeling.
love it. Jules, keep doing what you're doing. Um,
Thanks, Dylan.
love this so much, and thank you for being on here again.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Stay tuned for the next episode. And please like, subscribe, or share as it helps with our algorithms. And if you're struggling, again, please don't give up. Please work on healing yourself and allow the overflow of healing to affect your family and eventually your entire family. Don't quit. Don't give up. Keep going. See you next time.